With some cabbage, a white onion, an Asian pear, and chili powder. I recommend purchasing the fine as I accidentally purchased the coarse, but don't worry because if you have a grinder, you can easily grind it so it's a little bit more fine textured. This is fish sauce, and I'm not sure if this is an anchovy base, but they do recommend that just because it's more fishier, and plus that picture validated that it was okay. Himalayan kosher salt. This is the only type of salt I have, but they do recommend kosher. I just have the chunky one, and thankfully I have a grinder dispenser, so it's able to be more fine textured. The tools we'll need is a cutting board, cheese grater, a knife, and a measuring spoon. Then we're going to need a mixing bowl with a pot that you're going to mix the kimchi in, a strainer with a basket. So let's start off by cutting the cabbage in half. And I'm only going to use half a cabbage for the first batch. The reason why is that when I'm ready to make another batch, I can use the other half and I can make minor tweaks if I want to add more or less of an ingredient. Then you want to make sure you remove the core of the cabbage. So I'm going to cut straight in the middle on one edge of the core. Then I'm going to remove one layer from the outside of the cabbage, and you want to make sure it's nice and flat so it doesn't slip. So let's start cutting them in little wedges. Then I'm going to turn it to the side and start cutting them so they are actually cube size or bite size. And again, I'm going to flip over this part to make sure my cabbage doesn't slip and slide, so it's a little bit safer while chopping this up. Then we're going to load them in the basket and cut the other side. Let's move over to the sink and wash the cabbage. So before we give this a few rinses, the cabbage is really hard, so we need to soften it up, and that's where the kosher salt will come into play. After rinsing, you want to take 1 tablespoon of the salt and mix it evenly on the cabbage. Then you're going to mix it nice and lightly. And you're going to repeat a second tablespoon. Then you want to add about 3/4 of water, and we're going to let that sit for 15 minutes, and that will definitely soften it up. Back to the cutting board. So with that onion, as you can see, I'm trying to figure out how to cut it so it doesn't roll around. So I decided to cut the top first so it's nice and flat. Then I'm going to cut it right in the middle. This will actually help when grating the onion. So I actually have this cupped into my hand so it doesn't slip and I don't hurt my fingers while I'm grating this onion. But get ready for those tears, guys, because this was hardcore to grate, and those chili peppers, Now you don't have to grate all the way to the bottom. I just left a piece again so it avoids me scraping my fingers on the grater. This is actually optional, but we're going to use 1/4 of an Asian pear just to give it a little bit of a sweetness. I purposely did not peel it just because it's easier for me to cup in my hand and it gives me grip. And again, I'm just going to grate it all the way to the very close of the skin, but not so thin where, again, it will hurt myself. Moving on to some more smelly things. Let's go ahead and add a tablespoon and a half of minced garlic, tablespoon and a half of white sugar. It is recommended to use 5 tablespoons for that half of cabbage for the fish sauce. However, since I made a few batches, I've actually used about 3.5 to 4, only because it's a bit strong and I don't like the taste as much. I would rather have more chili powder. So we're gonna add 8 tablespoons of the chili powder and we're gonna mix everything together. As always, I will list everything down in the info box for you guys. I got this recipe from this guy who likes to cook a lot of Korean food, and I think he's located in Southern California. But you know, as recommended, you can add more or less of an ingredient that you like. This is just the base formulation that I followed, and after a few batches I decided to do more or less of some ingredients, so it's to your preference. Some people like it more spicy, so they add more pepper versus more onion or even more pear. So you can make it the way you like it, guys. Now by this time it's about 15 minutes and the cabbage is nice and soft. You want to rinse this about 2 to 3 times just to make sure it's not too salty. Be sure to strain as much water from the cabbage as possible. Now taking that pot, and yes, I'm using a regular pot because my strainer, as you can see, got super stained, but it's okay. After a few washes, it's not as red no more. So I actually tasted my paste before putting in the cabbage and it was just perfect. So I am wearing gloves because I am going to be using my hands to mix everything together. And I like to start off with a little bit of the cabbage and a little bit of the paste just to see how it evenly distributes into the cabbage. By this time I have both of my hands in here and I needed some help, so I asked my husband to add more chili paste as I was mixing it. Once you're satisfied with the color, the taste, just give it one more final mix. And I actually have some old spaghetti jars and mason jars I'm going to place this in. You can also use Tupperwares of your choice. They do recommend leaving this in the refrigerator for 24 to 48 hours. I actually left it in my fridge for about a week and it actually tasted so good after a week just sitting in there. Alright guys, so that is basically it for my DIY homemade kimchi tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed this or found it useful in any way. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you guys haven't already. Please give me a big thumbs up for this video. I know I've been a bit MIA on my channel. I just been doing a lot of self-care, renovations, and just hanging out with the family. But I do promise I have a lot of new video content and ideas coming up, so I will be posting them shortly. But I do thank you guys for watching my videos and supporting my channel. Alright guys, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!